Welcome to this week's edition of The Link, where we continue to give you information you can use, and sometimes we give you opportunities. And tonight we are back with the series, What Your Banker Will Not Tell You. We want to demystify some of the things so that when you go to borrow or you deal with the bank, you know. Somebody said, if you know, you know. We want you to know when dealing with the bank. And as usual, my guest tonight is Mr. Daniel Babonelere, who is a 20-year experienced banker. He's now doing consultants with Banner Consult. Daniel, welcome.
Thank you, Sam.
I have got interesting feedback every time we sit here together about these things. We are sure people know, but they actually don't know. And tonight we're dealing with a seemingly easy issue, but it may not be. What they call an amortization schedule. First of all, tell us, what is that animal called amortization schedule?
Thank you, Sam, and it's always a pleasure to be with you, Sam, and the viewers. It takes nothing for a candle to light another candle. What we take for granted sometimes, it's always something very useful information to another party, mostly if it's not an industry you are dealing in. First of all, in English definition of amortization is to regularly pay back a debt with regular installments or payments. That's it. But the common usage is that the amortization schedule has commonly been used to mean equal installments all through the term of the loan, whether at the beginning or at the end, you have one payment amount you are meeting. But that payment amount, the distribution inside it is that it has a component of principal and a component of interest. And at the beginning, the interest is much higher because the principal is still high. But gradually the component of the interest decreases as the component of the principal increases. This is done to help someone. Most of us have like a fixed income, mostly like you are a salary earner, or you have your fixed income and you have a limitation, say you can afford to pay 1 million. So the bank goes and calculates and sees, if we spread out this loan and give you something that can fit within your 1 million disposable income or available to be spent on a loan, then they facilitate you to pay back the loan. It has advantages and disadvantages, and you need to understand what it's all about. Because as we said, at the beginning the loan has the interest component is much higher, but it goes to reducing towards the end. And then the principal at the beginning, the component of the principal is smaller, but it goes increasing towards the end. Its characteristic is that at the beginning, when you are paying that type of the amortization schedule, your loan reduces very, very, very slowly. And I remember one time we touched a bit on it, and it's normally a cause of very many misunderstandings.
I was going to ask, why can it be such a trick?
Yes. You see, its advantage is also its disadvantage. Whereas you remember one time we talked about the formula of principal times rate times time. Now, when the principal component is smaller, the principal amount in the installment, not the principal balance, it means the principal balance remains high.
Let's give real numbers so people don't get confused.
Yes.
Let's say I've borrowed 10 million.
Yes. Say you have borrowed 10 million and say they're charging you 20% interest rate per year, per annum. That means every year you are paying 2 million out for all that 10 million. Now, you'll find now if your amount you can afford, let me assuming you're going to pay it in 10 months. Or in 12 months. If the amount you can pay is not more, because you have 2 million to pay
as interest,
but monthly, so you can afford, say, let's say 1 million. So you'll find you are paying maybe 900,000 as interest.
Interest, yes.
And you are paying 100,000 as principal.
Yeah.
So you see your loan will be reducing very slowly at the beginning. Now towards the end you'll find you are paying 900,000 of principal and 100,000 of interest. When your balance is 900,
yes,
and at the beginning your balance has been 10 million. So that's how sometimes it can create controversy. A client comes and he has paid 5 months, so he expects that his loan should have reduced 5 million.
Yes.
So he has paid 6 months, it's half a year, he thinks his loan should be now at 6 million.
Yeah.
But he comes back and actually finds that he has paid back only 2 million in principal. So he says, but I've been paying, you guys were cheating me. Now that is why we say you have to understand. So, but in most cases when they give you that amortization schedule, they give it to you with breakdown. It's good you look at it and say how much will be going to principal and how much will be going to interest. Yes. I think
why is that critical? Why is that critical for me to do the math? Okay, I'm seeing it, but why should I take time and even put a ruler and a pen and make sure I understand what is on there? What's the why? What's the big issue?
Yeah, you see, when you are signing the contract with the bank, I remember last time we talked about default. You don't want to default.
Yes.
So it allows you, what you should do with the amortization schedule is that you use it sort of as a worst case scenario.
Okay.
What if all I have is only my salary and that's what I can pay from? So you say, if I can afford to pay back 1 million, I stay within it. But you will know maybe some later on you do well, you get some gratuity along the way. It can also be factored into that amortization schedule.
Okay.
You go back and say, you write back to your bank and say, I would want to pay upfront. Most people think because they charge you some penalty, it is a scare for many. But when you calculate, the penalty is much smaller compared to the interest you'd be paying all along the way. So you'd rather incur that penalty, which is much smaller, and then retrieve. Or you can as well, much as it's an amortization schedule, we say it's equal installments, but you can build in some months. You know, when you do very well on 13th month, you get a bonus. You can factor it in. So you work very hard, you get a bonus, and you factor it in and say, December, I want a bigger installment, and it factors in, and every time it hits, the installment goes, the principal balance goes down, and the interest also automatically goes down. Okay. Yes. So once it's built in earlier on, then you don't have the challenges of penalty.
So amortization schedule, is it always equal? Are there situations where it might vary? When I'm not the one who has interfered with the bank, with the bonuses and everything else, is there a time when they can, amortization can be different? Or it's always equal?
Yeah, it's supposed to be always equal. But this is the generic to make you conform, because you remember the bank is not supposed to take away more than 50%, say, of your salary. Yes. Why is that? The other 50% assume the basic needs, your basic needs, can still be met, and you can still have the same lifestyle, even if they have taken away the other 50%. Yes. Therefore, the bank will try as much as possible to fit you within that 50%. So that's why it tries to make it, because your salary does not increase every. They assume it's going to stay. Otherwise, someone who has very high turnover, the amortized schedule is not in their favor, because it would mean they would have redundant cash on their account when the other side, the loan, is charging them. And actually, very many people also fall into the same trap. He has a lot of cash on their account, but he just straight jacket because he thinks the schedule has already been in a port and he can't change it, but it can be actually changed. You can go back to the bank and just actually from what go you can make negotiate and make it flexible, so that every time you get some money, it's allowed to put it back. If it's negotiated area, then the penalty also does not occur. Now, Dan, before we go, using the word the penalty. Yes. If the bank, I borrowed 10 million, and let me say in the 5th month, in the 6th month I've paid back, like 50%.
and I get another 4 million or whatever, I get another 90% of whatever is left. Why does the bank not just embrace me? Why do they charge me for paying in advance? I thought the issue is to recover their money.
I think
as fast as possible.
I think maybe it should be given another name, because the real factor should be not a penalty. I think the name is the one.
Yeah, it's contradictory.
But you see, when you pay back the bank, say you have paid it back 100 million. Now the bank has to look for where to invest that money.
Okay.
Now the bank, the money of the bank never sleeps. Every day, every night, it must make money. So they must look for where to put it. And in the transition before they get, because it was unplanned.
Yes.
They had a planned, Setumba is going to give us this interest in this 100 million.
Yes.
Now all of a sudden, you have paid it back.
Yes.
Now the guy who paid the fixed deposit, that is not going to suffer that loss. So the bank must look for a compensatory income. So maybe we could call it a compensation fee or something like that. Yes. Or you could write very early and tell them, a month from now I'm paying, then they can arrange and look for where to invest it.
So they won't penalize me.
No.
That's a very good to say.
Yes.
So if I warn you that in this time I'm coming to do this, you may not penalize me. That's interesting.
Yes.
In the 30 seconds, supposing I am left with, let me say 5 million, but I just pay 4, and I remain with 1 outstanding, will they still penalize me?
It depends from bank. It varies from bank to bank. Yes. Some banks penalize you only. The penalty applies only when you are paying up.
Yes.
But when you are reducing on the amount, they don't. And one last thing is that actually the phone you hold in your hands has an amortization schedule up.
Yes.
So every time you go to the bank, actually you can work out the different scenarios on how the amortization schedule you'd want and how much interest you'd want, and at what intervals you should make it varied should you want it to be.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Daniel Babonelere from Banner Consult, consultant with the banking sector now, having worked there for 20 years. We hope if you are paying back a loan or you're planning to borrow, that animal called amortization schedule is something you need to look at carefully, and be in communication with your bank to the end that it may be an advantage for you. That was the link. Thank you for joining us tonight.